The boardroom was dead silent except for the low hum of the air conditioning system that suddenly felt like it was mocking me. Chairman Harlan leaned forward across the long mahogany table, his silver hair catching the overhead lights as his eyes narrowed into slits. Evelyn, your relationship with Serenity has become public knowledge, and it is destroying client trust in conservative sectors, he said, his voice low, but cutting like a blade. End it now, or we will have no choice but to remove you from your position as Vice President of Marketing to safeguard the company image. My heart slammed against my ribs so hard I thought the whole room could hear it. But something deeper steadied me, a resolve I had buried for years. I stood slowly, my heels clicking on the polished floor, and reached into my leather briefcase, pulling out the single folded sheet of paper that had changed everything. Actually, Harlan, this is my marriage certificate to Serenity Thompson, dated exactly 2 years ago today, I said, sliding it across the table, so everyone could see the official seal and our signatures side by side. We are legally married, and if choosing her means walking away from this table, then that is exactly what I will do. Gasps rippled through the room like a wave crashing against rocks. Mrs. Lang, the only other woman on the board, clutched her pearls, her face flushing crimson, while Mr. Torres muttered something about public relations disaster and stock prices. Harlan slammed his palm down so hard the water glasses jumped. You cannot be serious, Evelyn. This will tank our partnerships with half our Midwest investors. I met his stare without blinking, feeling the weight of every secret meeting, every hidden text. Every night I had lain awake wondering if love was worth the risk. It already has cost me more than you will ever know, I replied, my voice even. But inside my mind raced back 2.5 years to the night I first saw Serenity. It was at the annual gala for the New York LGBTQ Youth Alliance, held in a glittering ballroom downtown. I was there as the keynote speaker, pushing corporate diversity initiatives while hiding my own truth behind tailored suits and practiced smiles. She was volunteering at the silent auction table, her dark hair falling in soft waves, her laugh carrying across the room like music I had not known I needed. Our eyes locked when I handed her my bid card. And in that moment the noise of the crowd faded. Later, over lukewarm coffee in the quiet corner of the venue, we talked for hours. She told me about growing up in a strict Catholic household in upstate New York, where any hint of difference was met with prayers and silence. I shared my own story of parents who still sent me articles about successful heterosexual marriages, hoping I would finally settle down. The connection was instant and terrifying because for the first time I felt seen, not as the ambitious executive, but as a woman who wanted to love openly. We started slow, stolen lunches in small cafes far from the financial district, late-night walks in Brooklyn where no one knew us. Every date carried the thrill of discovery mixed with the fear that someone from work would spot us. I remember the night 6 months in when we sat on a bench in Prospect Park, and she took my hand without hesitation. I cannot keep pretending, Evelyn, she whispered, her eyes shining with unshed tears. Neither can I answered, and in that moment we decided to stop hiding from each other, even if the world still demanded it. The wedding was small, just a handful of trusted friends in a private garden in the Hudson Valley on a crisp autumn day. Serenity wore a simple white dress that caught the light like hope itself, and I slipped the ring on her finger, promising forever. Even as my phone buzzed with work emails I ignored, the certificate I had just laid on the boardroom table was the physical proof of that promise. And now it sat there exposed under the harsh lights while the board erupted into arguments. One director suggested damage control, another demanded an immediate press statement, denying everything. I gathered my things, my hands steady despite the storm inside. This meeting is over, I said, turning toward the door. But as I walked out into the hallway, the reality crashed down. The career I had built from nothing, the respect I had fought for, every late night and sacrifice now hung by the thread of my truth. Back in my office I dialed Serenity, my fingers trembling for the first time that day. She answered on the second ring, her voice warm and steady. How did it go, love? I told her everything, the demand, the certificate, the chaos. And she listened without interruption. I am coming home right now, she said, and in her words I heard the same courage that had carried us through every hidden moment. The drive home to our brownstone in Park Slope felt endless, the city lights blurring past, as I replayed the boardroom scene in my head, wondering what price we would both pay for my stand. When I pulled into the driveway, Serenity was waiting on the porch, her arms open. We held each other under the porch light, the weight of the day settling around us like fog. Inside we sat at the kitchen table. She made tea the way I liked it, strong with a touch of honey, And we talked late into the night about what came next, the possible job loss, the media storm, the friends who might vanish. I have never been more proud of you, she said, squeezing my hand, but I saw the flicker of fear in her eyes, the same fear I felt deep in my bones. That night as we lay in bed, I stared at the ceiling, replaying every choice that led us here, from the first smile at the gala to the quiet vows we exchanged. Love had always demanded something from us: secrecy, patience, endurance. But now it asked for everything, and I wondered if I had the strength to pay the full cost. Morning brought the first calls from colleagues, whispers of leaked emails, and worried texts from allies who urged caution. I dressed for another day at the office, knowing the real battle had only begun, but with Serenity beside me brewing coffee and kissing my forehead, I felt the first spark of something unbreakable. The board had demanded I choose the company over her. But in revealing our marriage, I had chosen us. And the consequences, whatever they might be, would test every part of who I was. The next morning the office buzzed with a different energy, the kind that comes when everyone knows something explosive has happened, but no one dares speak it aloud. I walked through the glass doors of Thompson Financial, my head high, briefcase in hand, the marriage certificate safely back in its folder but burned into my memory. Colleagues offered tight smiles, some avoided eye contact altogether. Victoria, my longtime rival in the marketing department, lingered by the coffee station, her perfectly manicured nails tapping her mug. Heard things got interesting in the board meeting yesterday, she said, her tone sweet but her eyes sharp as knives. I met her gaze evenly. Interesting is one word for it. She leaned in closer, lowering her voice. You know, this could affect all of us: bonuses, projections, the works. If you had just kept it quiet like the rest of us do with our personal lives, none of this would be happening. Her words stung because they echoed the voice in my own head, the one that had whispered compromise for years. But I had paid enough for quiet. I stepped past her into my office, closing the door on her smirk. By 10 o'clock the first news alert hit my phone. A small business blog had picked up the story, framing it as corporate drama with hints of discrimination. Serenity called during lunch, her voice tight. My sister saw it online, she said. She is asking questions I do not know how to answer. I closed my eyes, picturing her in our kitchen, the same place we had celebrated our first anniversary with takeout and laughter. Tell her the truth, I replied. We are married and I am not ashamed. But as I hung up, the guilt crept in, the knowledge that my decision was rippling outward, touching her family, her work as a freelance editor where clients value discretion. That afternoon the board called an emergency session without me. I waited in my office, pacing the floor, watching the skyline through the window, the Empire State Building standing tall like a reminder that some things endure. When the email came, it was short and formal: pending review of company values, your position is under evaluation. I sank into my chair, the words blurring. The cost was already mounting: the promotion I had been promised, the team I had mentored, the security I had built for us both. Serenity arrived at my office unannounced, her coat dusted with early autumn rain. She pulled me into a hug right there in the hallway, ignoring the stares. We walked to a nearby cafe, hands brushing but not holding, the old habit of caution hard to break. Over lattes we dissected the day, her eyes filling when I described Victoria's comment. She has always been jealous, you know, she said. But this is bigger than office politics. It is about who we are allowed to be. We talked about the early days again, how after our wedding we had returned to work pretending nothing had changed, attending separate holiday parties, smiling through family calls where I was always the single successful daughter. The secrecy had eaten at us slowly, small lies growing into walls until the board meeting shattered them. That evening at home we cooked dinner together, the simple act of chopping vegetables side by side feeling like rebellion. My phone kept lighting up with messages from old college friends, some supportive, some distant. One from my sister Lauren stopped me cold. Mom saw the article, call her before she hears it from someone else. The family pressure I had dreaded was arriving faster than expected. Serenity noticed my expression and took the phone gently. Whatever comes, we face it together, she said, her voice the anchor I needed. But later, as we watched the news, a segment on corporate inclusivity that somehow twisted into speculation about my future, I felt the first real crack in my resolve. What if the company forced my hand? What if clients pulled out and jobs were lost because of me? Serenity sensed it and turned off the television. Remember the night we got married, she whispered. You said no more hiding, no matter what. I nodded, pulling her close, the warmth of her body against mine, a reminder of why I had stood up in that boardroom. The days blurred into strategy sessions with my lawyer, late calls with supportive board allies who admitted privately that the demand was outdated but public image was everything. Victoria leaked more details to the press, framing me as reckless, and I confronted her in the hallway, my voice low but firm. Why, Victoria? She shrugged. Some of us play the game, Evelyn. You chose not to. Her betrayal cut deep because we had once been friends, sharing late nights on campaigns. Now she stood to gain from my fall. That night Serenity and I lay awake talking about the what-ifs. What if I lost the job? What if her freelance work dried up from association? What if our families turned away completely? The psychological weight pressed down the fear that love had led us to ruin. Yet in the quiet hours before dawn I held her and knew the alternative, hiding forever, would have cost even more: my soul, my peace, our future. The board scheduled another meeting for the end of the week, and I prepared, knowing the next confrontation would demand more than a certificate. It would demand every ounce of the woman I had become. The phone call from my mother came at 7 the next morning, her voice sharp enough to slice through the morning fog. Evelyn Marie Thompson, what in God's name have you done? I sat at the kitchen table, Serenity beside me, her hand on my knee. Mom, it is not what you think. I started, but she cut me off. The whole family is talking. Your father is mortified. Your sister is fielding calls from the church group. How could you embarrass us like this, throwing away everything we sacrificed for you to build that career? Her words landed like stones, each one stirring the old guilt, the years of Sunday dinners where I smiled and changed the subject when asked about boyfriends, the holidays spent alone with Serenity, pretending we were just roommates. I tried to explain the board demand, the years of hiding, but she would not hear it. This is not the life we raised you for, she said, her voice cracking with disappointment. Fix it before it is too late. When I hung up, tears burned my eyes. Serenity pulled me into her arms. She will come around, she murmured, but we both knew the odds were slim. My sister Lauren called next, her tone colder. I defended you for years, Evie, but this is too much. Mom is crying. Dad is talking about cutting you out of the will. The family legacy, the house in Connecticut, the expectations I had carried since childhood, all now a weapon against me. The betrayal from my own blood hurt worse than the board because it was personal. It was the little girl who once believed family meant unconditional love, now facing the truth that love had conditions. Serenity listened as I recounted the calls, her own eyes distant, remembering her parents' similar reaction when she came out at 19. We spent the afternoon in the living room going through old photos, the secret wedding album, hidden in a drawer for so long. Each picture brought back the joy but also the fear, the way we had scanned every guest list for leaks. The psychological toll of double lives surfaced in waves, the anxiety attacks. I had hidden the nights Serenity cried alone, because she wanted to post a simple anniversary photo. That evening my mother arrived unannounced, her face set in the familiar mask of righteous anger. We sat in the living room, the tension thick, as she launched into her lecture. Marriage is between a man and a woman, Evelyn, you know that in your heart. This phase, this choice is destroying your life and ours. Serenity sat quietly, her presence a quiet strength, while I defended us, listing the love, the commitment, the legal reality. But my mother's words dug into old wounds, the sermons I had heard as a child, the fear that I was broken. When she left, slamming the door, the silence was heavier than ever. Serenity and I talked for hours, dissecting every argument, the moral dilemma of choosing self over family, the societal prejudice that painted our love as lesser. I felt the inner conflict tearing at me, the part that still wanted approval warring with the woman who had stood in the boardroom. The next day at work, the atmosphere had shifted. Some allies offered quiet support, but the whispers grew. Victoria cornered me in the copy room. Your family drama is all over the internal chat, she said, smiling thinly. How does it feel to be the villain? Her words triggered a flash of anger, and I finally saw the pattern, the way she had fed information to the board to position herself for my job. The betrayal from a colleague I had mentored stung, but it also clarified something: the world was full of people who benefited from others staying small. That night Serenity and I walked the neighborhood streets, hands linked openly for the first time in public, the small act feeling revolutionary. She shared her own awakening, how hiding had dimmed her writing, how my stand had given her courage to pitch bolder stories. Yet the family pressure mounted, emails from cousins, texts from aunts, all urging me to apologize to the board, to fix the image. The psychological strain showed in sleepless nights, in the way I caught Serenity staring at her phone, her face pale. We held each other tighter, the cost of truth becoming clearer every day, the lost relationships, the questioned careers, the constant judgment. But in the quiet moments when she traced the ring on my finger, I remembered why we fought, the love that had survived secrecy, and now faced the fire of exposure. The second board meeting loomed, and I prepared, knowing my family, my colleagues, my own doubts would all demand a price for the choice I had made. The second board meeting felt like walking into a battlefield, the same mahogany table now lined with legal pads and stern faces. Harlan opened without pleasantries. Evelyn, the leaks have damaged our Q3 projections by 12%. Clients are pulling out citing values misalignment. We need you to issue a statement distancing yourself from this marriage or we will have to terminate. I sat tall, the certificate in my folder like armor. I will not distance myself from my wife, I replied. If the company cannot stand with me, then perhaps it is time for new leadership. The room exploded, Mrs. Lang arguing about fiduciary duty, Mr. Torres waving market research on conservative investors. Victoria sat in the back, her smile triumphant, clearly the source of the deeper leaks. After the meeting, she approached me in the hallway. I did what was necessary for the team, she said. You were dragging us down. The confrontation left me shaking but also free, the mask of professionalism finally gone. I drove home that evening, the city traffic a blur, my mind replaying every sacrifice, the degrees earned while dating in secret, the promotions chased while swallowing fear. Serenity met me at the door, her face etched with worry. She had received a call from her editor canceling a major project citing brand concerns. The professional fallout was spreading to her now, the price we both paid for my stand. We spent the evening on the couch talking through the moral maze. Was my defiance selfish or necessary, the line between integrity and destruction blurring under stress? The next week brought more betrayals. An old mentor from business school publicly distanced himself on LinkedIn. A childhood friend unfollowed me on social media. Each cut deepened the wound, the social prejudice I had known existed now personal and relentless. Serenity struggled too, her writing stalled, the joy of words replaced by doubt. One night she broke down in the kitchen. I love you more than anything, but I never wanted to cost you everything. I held her, the guilt I felt for pulling her into the storm warring with the certainty that hiding would have cost us our souls. We decided to fight together, hiring a publicist to shape our narrative, sharing our story on a small blog. The response mixed, support from the community, backlash from others. The inner conflict raged. I questioned every decision, the day I said I do, the moment I revealed the certificate, the nights I chose career over honesty earlier on. Family silence stretched into weeks, my mother's letters arriving filled with Bible verses, my father's absence louder than words. The psychological toll manifested in anxiety attacks I hid from Serenity, the fear that love had led us to isolation. Yet in the quiet moments we found strength, cooking meals, planning a small trip, the simple acts reminding us of the happiness we had fought for. Victoria was promoted temporarily, her betrayal rewarded, but I saw the hollowness in her eyes, the price she paid in integrity. The company stock dipped further, the board fractured, some members quietly supporting me. The climax built as I faced the choice to resign or be fired, the decision weighing heavy, the career I loved versus the life I chose. Serenity and I argued one night, the tension peaking. Maybe I should have waited, she said, tears streaming. No, I replied, the awakening clear now. Compromise was slow death, this is life. The confrontation with the board the next day would decide much, but the real battle was internal, the acceptance that every choice carried loss and every loss revealed truth. The resignation letter sat on my desk for 3 days, the words blurring each time I read them. The board had given an ultimatum: public apology or exit package with non-disclosure. Serenity and I debated it endlessly, her voice steady but eyes tired. You built this career from nothing, she said one rainy afternoon. Walking away means starting over. I paced the living room, the family photos on the wall now feeling like accusations. But staying means apologizing for loving you, I answered, the moral dilemma crystallizing. The cost of staying would be my authenticity, the slow erosion of us. Flashbacks haunted me, the boardroom shock, my mother's tears, Victoria's smirk, each scene a reminder of the betrayals that had forced this crossroads. We visited a counselor recommended by a friend, the sessions peeling back layers, the childhood conditioning, the societal messages that love must fit a mold. Serenity shared her trauma, the years of therapy after coming out, the fear that her marriage to me had reopened old wounds. The psychological depth of our journey surfaced, the way hiding had taught us resilience but truth demanded courage. One evening my sister Lauren showed up unexpectedly, her face a mask of conflicted loyalty. Mom is sick with worry, she said. Fix this, Evie, for the family. The confrontation in our living room stretched for hours, her arguments echoing the board, the guilt trip pulling at every insecure thread. Serenity listened, then spoke calmly. This is not about destroying family, it is about living honestly. Lauren left without resolution, the rift widening. That night Serenity and I lay awake, the question hanging: was our love worth the wreckage? The inner awakening came slowly, the realization that every sacrifice, the lost job, the strained family, the public scrutiny had stripped away the fear, leaving only clarity. I signed the resignation the next morning, the act freeing and terrifying. The exit package provided breathing room, but the real work began rebuilding. We sold the story to a progressive outlet, the article going viral, support pouring in from unexpected places. Yet the costs mounted. Serenity's freelance income halved, my network shrinking. In the quiet evenings we rebuilt, talking, dreaming, the future clearer now. The moral choice no longer felt like a gamble, it felt like survival, the only path to the happiness we had glimpsed on our wedding day. Family pressure eased slightly, a tentative email from my father, but the scars remained. Serenity and I took a weekend away to the mountains, the fresh air helping us process the betrayals, the trade-offs, the growth. The psychological transformation was profound, from the woman who hid in boardrooms to the one who stood openly, the price paid in tears and doubt but gained in peace. As we packed to return home, I knew the final chapter waited, the life we would build beyond the corporate walls, beyond the family expectations. The moving boxes filled our brownstone slowly, each one a symbol of transition. I had started consulting work, small projects with inclusive companies, while Serenity landed a book deal inspired by our journey. The awakening was complete. The woman who once feared exposure now spoke at panels, sharing our story with measured honesty. Family ties mended in fragments, my mother sending a card on our anniversary, no apology but a bridge. Lauren called occasionally, her tone softer, the betrayal softening into understanding. The societal prejudice lingered in occasional stares or comments, but we faced them together stronger. One sunny afternoon in Central Park we sat on the same bench where we had once dreamed aloud, Serenity leaning into me, her hand in mine openly. The happiness we had fought for bloomed in small moments, laughter over coffee, plans for a future unhidden. The costs remained, the career pivot, the family distance, the inner scars, but each had shaped us, the trade-offs revealing what mattered most. Victoria reached out months later, her promotion hollow, she admitted the company struggling without the vision I had brought. The irony was not lost, but I felt no triumph, only the quiet knowledge that integrity had its own reward. As we walked hand in hand through the park, the golden light catching Serenity's smile, I reflected on the path, the boardroom shock, the family storms, the betrayals and choices. Every female character in our story, Evelyn the executive, Serenity the writer, my mother the guardian, Lauren the sister, Victoria the rival, had paid prices in pride, in relationships, in peace, yet each had grown through the fire. The drama had tested us, the psychological battles forging resilience, the social pressures clarifying values. In the end we stood not as victims, but as women who chose love over comfort, truth over ease. Looking at Serenity, the woman who had walked every step beside me through the pain and the triumph, I knew the journey, though costly, had been worth every tear. Was Evelyn right to risk her career, her family ties, and her hard-earned stability for her love with Serenity? Or should she have compromised and sacrificed the marriage to keep the peace the board her family and society demanded?